Some neighborhoods collect mail, others collect suspicion. Ruthridge Commons was the kind of place that sold itself on quiet. Neat lawns, matching mailboxes, a stone sign at the entrance, and a constant promise that nothing unpredictable would ever happen on that street. The people who moved there did not always say it out loud, but they believed safety could be purchased, curated, and maintained like landscaping. That belief had a system. It had committees. It had monthly HOA emails. It had a neighborhood watch program that mostly consisted of retirees watching Ring camera clips while coffee cooled on the kitchen counter. And it had an app, because everything had an app now. The app was supposed to make everyone feel in control. It invited residents to post alerts, share suspicious activity, and congratulate each other for being vigilant. The official language was polite and careful, full of words like community and awareness. The unofficial reality was simpler. It gave fear a button to press, and it gave the neighborhood a place to agree with itself. That is how a dog walker became a burglar. Marcus Reed did not look like a threat. If you met him in a grocery store aisle, you would guess he was someone's nephew visiting from out of town, or a man on his way to work. He was 46, medium build, calm face, early gray at the temples, the kind of expression that comes from long habits of patience. He dressed plainly, hoodie or jacket depending on weather, practical shoes, nothing flashy. He was not the loud type. He did not want attention. He wanted consistency. After his divorce, consistency had become his main strategy for survival. He had 2 kids, one in high school and one in middle school, and a schedule that needed to hold together like a bridge. His days were split between shifts at a local printing warehouse and whatever work he could pick up on the side. Dog walking started as a favor for a neighbor's elderly aunt. It became a reliable supplement. People paid on time. Dogs did not lie. The route was predictable. The rules were clear. He walked dogs in Ruthridge Commons because it was close to his warehouse and because the clients there paid without bargaining. A golden retriever named Teddy every weekday at 5:30. A small terrier named Olive on Tuesdays and Thursdays at lunch. A husky named Nova on weekend mornings. The dogs were different, but the streets were always the same. Smooth sidewalks and quiet loops under tall trees. Marcus kept a routine that was almost ceremonial. He parked in the same area, clipped leashes with the same careful hands, and kept dog waste bags in the same pocket. He used a professional app that tracked walks, recorded routes, and time-stamped arrivals and departures. The clients liked it because it looked official. Marcus liked it because it created proof. Proof was not something he planned to need, not in that way. The first time he noticed the attention, it was small, almost unremarkable. A curtain shifted. A door opened and closed quickly. A neighbor paused a little too long by a mailbox. It was the soft, wordless kind of observation that many black men learn to recognize early. The feeling of being scanned like a barcode. Marcus ignored it. He focused on the dogs. Dogs did not care about other people's assumptions. Then, the alerts started appearing. One of his clients showed him on her phone without thinking much of it. A post in the neighborhood watch app with a photo. It was grainy and zoomed in, taken from a Ring camera. It showed Marcus walking Teddy past a driveway. The caption described an unknown man checking out houses. Marcus did not overreact. He had seen posts like that online before. He assumed it would fade. People would learn his face. The community would move on to the next minor anxiety. Instead, the posts multiplied. A week later, another alert appeared. This one described a man in a dark hoodie walking slowly near the back row of houses. Another photo, again from a doorbell camera, again zoomed in. In the comments, a few residents agreed that they had seen him. Others suggested calling police. Someone mentioned that burglars often use dogs as an excuse to case neighborhoods. The logic was absurd, but it was clean and confident, like a rumor that sounded smart to people who wanted to believe it. Marcus still did not realize how quickly the story was hardening. He did not understand the way that apps like that transformed a person into a repeated image, and how repetition created certainty. When you see the same face posted again and again under the word suspicious, eventually the word begins to feel like a fact. The moment everything tilted happened on a Wednesday evening in early fall. The air had started to cool, and the streetlights clicked on earlier each day. Marcus had Teddy on leash and was finishing the route. Teddy liked to stop at one particular corner where squirrels lived. Marcus let him sniff for a minute. Then he tugged gently, moving them forward. At the same time, a woman in a white SUV pulled up near the entrance sign and slowed. She watched Marcus through the windshield. She did not wave. She did not ask a question. She simply stared in the focused way that people stare when they have already decided what they are looking at. Marcus continued walking. He turned onto another street and looped back toward the client's home. When he reached the driveway, the client's garage door was opening. He guided Teddy inside and unclipped the leash. He logged the end of the walk in his professional app, snapped a photo of Teddy drinking water, and sent it. Routine, proof, payment. He stepped back outside, checked his phone for the next appointment, and walked toward his car. He did not make it to the car. 2 police vehicles rolled into the street with headlights bright. One stopped in front of him, the other angled behind. There was no siren, but there was a clear message in the way the cars positioned themselves. Control the space. Control the person. Marcus stopped walking. He kept his hands visible. He did not run because innocent people do not run, and because running has never been a guarantee of safety anyway. The officers approached with the posture of men who believed they were responding to something real. They asked for identification. They asked why he was in the neighborhood. They asked who he knew there. They asked where he lived. They asked where his vehicle was parked. They asked why he had been seen walking near multiple homes over multiple days. Marcus answered calmly. He explained that he was a dog walker. He provided the client's address. He offered to show messages and the professional app that tracked the walk. He described the routes and the dogs by name, because names are harder to argue with than generalities. The officers listened, but not with trust. They listened the way people listen when they are waiting for a lie to crack. One officer checked his identification. The other asked for the client to come outside. That was the moment Marcus felt the humiliation sharpen. Not because he had done anything wrong, but because the situation required a white homeowner to validate his right to be present. It was the kind of dynamic that older black men talk about, like a scar. Marcus had hoped his own life would not include more of it. The client came out. She confirmed everything. She was polite, confused, and slightly embarrassed, but her embarrassment was not the kind that ends a pattern. It was the kind that evaporates as soon as the immediate discomfort passes. The police left without an arrest. they did not apologize. Their report would later be filed under a category that sounded neutral, like suspicious person investigation. But the neighborhood story did not reset. The neighborhood story escalated. Because the woman in the white SUV did not think she had been wrong. She thought she had been early. That night, she posted in the Neighborhood Watch app that police had made contact with the suspicious man and that residents should remain alert. She did not mention that he was a hired dog walker. She did not mention that the homeowner confirmed it. She framed the situation as unresolved, as if the police had simply missed something. Others jumped in. Some thanked her for keeping the community safe. Some asked for a better photo. Someone suggested recording license plates. Another person claimed they had seen the same man near the clubhouse the previous week. Someone else, trying to sound reasonable, said it might just be a dog walker, but that burglars often use dog walking as cover. The comment had the poison of plausibility. Within 24 hours, Marcus's face was trending inside Ruthridge Commons like a warning label. His clients began to call him, not to accuse him directly, but to ask careful questions. Had he been stopped? Was everything okay? Had something happened with police? One client said her neighbor had asked if she knew the man in the photos. Another client suggested, kindly, that he wear a brighter vest so people understood he was working. Marcus agreed, because arguing with fear does not work, and because he needed the money. He bought a reflective vest that said "Dog Walker" in block letters. He also bought a body camera, the kind used by cyclists, small enough to clip to a strap. He told himself it was for his safety and the dog's safety. He did not say the quieter part out loud. He wanted evidence because he had learned, again, that evidence mattered more than truth. The next 2 weeks were tense but manageable. Residents stared less when they saw the vest. A few nodded at him. Some looked away. The app still posted occasional alerts, but the comments became less confident. Then a burglary happened. Not in Marcus's vicinity. Not on his route. Not during his work hours. It happened late at night in a different section of the neighborhood. Someone broke into a garage and stole tools and a bicycle. The victim posted about it in the app, angry and frightened. Suddenly, the neighborhood needed a suspect. It did not matter that Marcus had been documented walking dogs in broad daylight. It did not matter that the burglary took place at midnight. It did not matter that he lived across town and was working early shifts. The neighborhood had already rehearsed a story in its app. A suspicious man had been seen near homes. Now, a home had been burglarized. The app did what it was built to do. It connected dots, whether or not the dots belonged together. A resident uploaded an image from a doorbell camera. It was dark, blurry, and mostly useless. But in the comments, someone claimed the figure looked like Marcus. Others agreed because agreement is contagious. The woman in the white SUV insisted it was the same person they had been warning about. A few voices pushed back, saying the image was not clear and that the dog walker had been vetted. Those voices were drowned out by panic. A new call went to 911. This time police did not simply approach Marcus with questions. This time they arrived with a narrative already formed. The dispatch notes included phrases like "possible suspect" in recent burglaries. The officers who responded carried that assumption into the interaction like a tool. Marcus was walking Olive, the small terrier, near a row of garages when the first patrol car stopped. The officer's body language was sharper, less curious and more corrective. Marcus saw the shift and felt his chest tighten. He complied with every request. Hands visible, identification offered, work app shown, vest clearly visible. Yet the questions kept circling. Why was he in this neighborhood so often? Why did he walk near garages? Why did he sometimes stop at corners? Why did he check his phone? Why did he take photos of dogs? Why did he wear a camera? The last question was asked with suspicion, as if recording the world was itself evidence of wrongdoing. Marcus explained that the walk-tracking app required photos. He explained that the camera was for safety and to document any disputes. That explanation landed like gasoline on a fire. To the officers, it sounded like he was anticipating conflict, and to people who assume guilt, anticipation reads as planning. Marcus was detained while they contacted the HOA Security Committee. A board member arrived and pointed at him as if identifying a criminal. Another neighbor arrived with a phone and filmed. The moment became a small spectacle, the kind that makes rumors feel justified. In the end, Marcus was not arrested that day either. The evidence did not support it. The timeline did not support it. The officers released him, but they logged the encounter. Another neutral report, another entry in the system, another piece of paper that, to the neighborhood, looked like confirmation. Marcus went home that evening exhausted and furious, but mostly exhausted. He sat at his kitchen table and opened his laptop. He watched the neighborhood app posts spread in real time. His own face turned into a public warning inside a community that he did not even live in. He made a decision then that changed the shape of the story. He contacted a legal aid organization that specialized in civil rights and wrongful policing. He did not want money. He wanted the harassment to stop. He wanted police to stop using him as a practice run for other people's fear. He wanted the neighborhood app to stop turning his work into suspicion. The organization listened. Then they asked for documentation. Marcus had it. He had the professional dog walking logs. He had timestamps. He had GPS routes. He had client messages. He had receipts for payments. He had the reflective vest purchase. He had bodycam footage from the second police stop, recorded from his chest camera. The footage captured the officer's questions and his calm answers. It captured the fact that he was in a marked vest, holding a dog leash, doing normal work. It also captured something else. In the background of the encounter, a neighbor's phone screen was visible for a brief moment, showing the neighborhood watch app open, with Marcus's own photo on it, and comments urging people to call police whenever they saw him. The legal aid attorney saw that detail and paused, because that detail turned the story from a misunderstanding into a system. The attorney filed a request for records with the police department, asking for all calls and reports related to Marcus's name and the addresses in Ruthridge Commons. Then they filed an information request to the HOA, asking for communications regarding neighborhood security, app alerts, and instructions given to residents about reporting suspicious activity. The HOA replied with the usual language. They insisted they were only promoting safety. They insisted they did not target any individual. They insisted the app was managed by residents, not the association. But the attorney did not let them hide behind that separation, because the HOA president and board members had been active participants in the app. They had posted. They had commented. They had encouraged reporting. They had brought their authority into a space that pretended to be informal, making informal fear feel official. The legal aid organization offered to resolve it quietly if the HOA agreed to stop encouraging police calls on Marcus and to issue a statement clarifying that he was an authorized dog walker. The HOA refused. They refused because admitting error would upset the board's preferred story, and because some residents were still convinced they had been right. They did not want to walk back months of suspicion. They wanted the world to bend around their assumptions instead. So the case went forward. The attorney filed a lawsuit alleging harassment, discrimination in access to public services, and coordination of biased reporting that misused police resources. The target was not only the HOA, but also the structure that allowed a private neighborhood to repeatedly summon law enforcement against a person who had committed no crime. Once the court process began, something interesting happened. People who had been loud in the app became quiet, not because their beliefs had changed, but because their words could become evidence. Discovery required the HOA to produce communications, emails, meeting minutes, security committee notes, and, importantly, records related to the Neighborhood Watch program and the app. The HOA argued that app content was not under its control. The attorney countered with screenshots showing board members posting, moderating, and directing residents to use the app as an enforcement tool. The judge agreed that communications by board members acting in their official roles were relevant, regardless of platform. The court ordered preservation and production. That is when the Neighborhood Watch app became the neighborhood's problem. The attorney subpoenaed records from the app provider, not the content of every resident's private device, but the posts and moderation actions associated with official HOA accounts and known board member identities. They also requested metadata, timestamps, edits, deletions, reports, who flagged what, who boosted alerts, who encouraged calls. The results were devastating in the quiet way evidence often is. The logs showed that board members had repeatedly pinned posts about Marcus. They had approved alerts labeling him suspicious. They had removed comments defending him as a legitimate worker while leaving up comments suggesting police involvement. They had encouraged residents to document him. They had posted language about building a record, and they had done it not after any crime, but before, as a strategy. Then the burglary happened, and the same board members steered attention toward Marcus again, despite the lack of evidence and despite the mismatch in timing. The app had become a funnel, channeling community fear toward a single person who had already been selected. The case reached a hearing rather than a dramatic jury trial. It was held in a county courtroom with fluorescent lighting and wooden benches that creaked. There were no cameras from the news. There was no grand speech. There was paperwork and evidence and a judge with a tight schedule who did not like nonsense. Marcus sat at one table in a plain suit he borrowed from his cousin. His hands were steady, but his jaw was tight. Beside him sat the attorney and a folder that held months of his working life: logs, roots, client statements, and the bodycam video. Across the room, HOA board members sat in business casual clothes, stiff and uncomfortable. Some had not expected to be there. They had expected the app to be a harmless neighborhood tool, not a documented record of how they treated a man they did not like seeing. The judge reviewed the police reports first. Each one ended the same way. No crime observed, identity confirmed, authorized presence, no arrest. The pattern suggested not criminal behavior, but repeated reporting. The judge then reviewed Marcus's professional logs. They matched the times he was present. They matched the addresses of his clients. They showed that he had been working. Then the judge turned to the app records. The court display screen showed posts and comments in large text, stripped of the casual feel of a phone and made formal by being projected in a courtroom. The language was not openly hateful. It did not need to be. It was administrative and euphemistic. Words like suspicious, uncomfortable, does not belong, protect property values, keep the neighborhood safe, document every time. The judge saw the deletions too, the removed comments where residents tried to explain that Marcus was a hired dog walker, the moderation actions that silenced defenders while amplifying accusers, the pinned posts that kept Marcus's face visible at the top of the feed. The judge asked for an explanation of why official HOA representatives were using the app to shape reporting behavior. The HOA attorney tried to explain it as community engagement. The judge returned to the facts. The facts showed a private association encouraging repeated police contact with the same individual for lawful behavior. At that point, the legal framing became clear. This was not simply a neighborhood being cautious. This was a neighborhood using police as a service to enforce social boundaries and using an app to coordinate it. The outcome did not come as a thunderclap. It came as a set of orders, agreements, and consequences that changed the neighborhood's habits. The HOA agreed to a settlement that included monetary compensation for Marcus's lost work time and emotional distress. More importantly, it included policy changes. The HOA was required to stop using its official channels, including any affiliated neighborhood apps, to encourage reporting of individuals without objective, specific, behavior-based reasons. They were required to implement training on discrimination and bias for all board members and security committee members. They were required to issue a written statement to residents clarifying Marcus's status as an authorized worker and warning against misuse of police resources. The police department agreed to modify its call handling for repeated suspicious person reports in HOA-dominated neighborhoods. Patterns would be flagged. Supervisors would review. Officers would be briefed not to treat repeated calls as automatic confirmation. They would be required to document the basis for suspicion, not simply the caller's feelings. The app provider also made changes. Under the settlement terms, the HOA's official accounts were restricted. The ability to pin posts and remove comments was limited to enforce clearer standards, and moderation logs were made more accessible for review in cases of alleged abuse. The neighborhood watch tool was forced to behave more like a safety tool and less like a rumor engine. Marcus did not celebrate. He felt something closer to exhaustion with a thin layer of relief over it. The case had not changed the world. It had not erased bias. It had not magically turned fearful neighbors into thoughtful ones. But it had done something important. It had put the neighborhood's private certainty under public scrutiny. It had forced their assumptions to meet actual data. It had reminded them that police reports and app posts are not toys, and that a record can be built against the people who try to build one. In the weeks after the settlement, Marcus returned to his roots. He still wore the reflective vest. He still logged the walks. He still carried the small body camera, not because he wanted to keep living like a defendant, but because he understood how quickly a calm day can become a file number. The difference was that when he walked through Ruthridge Commons, Some residents finally looked away for a different reason, not because they believed he was suspicious, but because they remembered that their own words had been read aloud in court. The woman in the white SUV stopped posting. A few of the loudest commenters deleted their profiles. Others stayed, but quieter now, suddenly aware that confidence is not the same thing as evidence. Marcus kept walking dogs because it was honest work, because it fed his kids, because it was predictable. And because every step he took down those perfectly maintained sidewalks now carried a small additional truth that the neighborhood had not anticipated. He did not have to earn permission to exist there through someone else's comfort. He had already earned it through his work, his receipts, his routes, and the simple fact that the law was not designed to serve a neighborhood's fear. Not when a judge was willing to look at the data